Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and here is your detailed forecast update for March 12th, 2025. A lot to get through in today's forecast update, including heavy rainfall expected to amount to up to 1,000mm over the next fortnight up in far North Queensland. We've got a tropical low expected to develop in the Gulf of Carperntaria, which could also bring some much-needed rainfall to the Northern Territory, and a strong tropical cyclone possible offshore from Western Australia. All of that plus more coming up in today's weather forecast. If you are brand new to the channel, please consider subscribing, but let's get stuck straight into things today up in far North Queensland, looking at the heavy rainfall that's expected into the next 2 weeks. So you can see heavy showers and thunderstorms right now over far North Queensland. They've delivered some healthy rainfall accumulations, especially to places outside of Innisfail, where falls up to 100mm have been reported over the last 24 hours. Significant rainfall accumulations have also been reported between Cairns right up towards the Daintree rainforest as well. Significant falls there have been amounting to up to about 75mm, so nothing crazy and nothing too heavy, but certainly enough water to be filling up those rivers and filling up those dams once again in the lead up to this rainfall. So any rainfall right now is certainly not welcome, and things have dried off quite significantly up in far North Queensland. But if I just bring this forecast forward and spoil the entire purpose of this video, I mean, just take a look at how much rainfall is expected up there. Whilst this forecast is not suggesting too much, the axis, which is normally pretty good with rainfall up in far North Queensland, is now suggesting some really significant rainfall accumulations over just the next 10 days. And as we push this forecast forward out even further, it'll become quite obvious why this rainfall is about half of what's actually going to happen over the next 14 days. Anyway, so let's break that down for you day by day, hour by hour, and for place by place over the next couple of weeks. From the axis forecast model, we are expecting that heavy rainfall to continue throughout the remainder of, or to ease off throughout the remainder of today, and then start to pipe up again as we get in towards this weekend. You can see it on the forecast models right now. A few showers and thunderstorms expected to linger throughout the remainder of today. The convective forecast model still calling for some rain bands to be moving through here and there, and a couple of thunderstorms possible further inland later on tonight. And then in terms of showers and thunderstorms, nothing really expected throughout the course of tomorrow, but some heavier falls will begin to pipe up into the North Queensland coastline between Bowen and Townsville, and we could be seeing some heavy lines of showers come through those areas later on tomorrow afternoon and into tomorrow evening. Also isolated to quite widespread bands of heavy rainfall expected further up the Cape York Peninsula up towards Urichan and Weipa, and significant falls are possible in those locations as well. But rainfall accumulations over the next 24 hours, nothing significant, that's for sure. Nothing crazy, and definitely nothing on top of the rainfall accumulations that we've seen. Doesn't look like they actually want to load in, so we'll leave that for another video. But in terms of the forecast models now looking forward over the next couple of days, you can see throughout Thursday, expecting those showers to pipe up across the North Queensland coastline around the Townsville and the Bowen area, and then by Thursday night into Friday morning, the showers will arrive at the Cassowary coast between Cairns down to Cardwell. Expecting heavy bursts of rainfall here and there through Thursday night into early Friday morning, and we could be waking up to rainfall accumulations on Friday morning of up to 100mm, depending on how heavy and how widespread the rainfall is. Falls will also extend up into towards the Daintree rainforest as well, and they will be heavy at times through early Friday morning and into late Friday morning. The rainfall will actually clear out of the Cassowary coast in the North Queensland area by around Friday afternoon. We'll get a couple of hours of break type weather up there. Now, what's going to happen from now on is we're expecting this tropical low to develop either in the Gulf of Carperntaria or in the Timor Sea, just north of the Northern Territory. And this tropical low will then swing around into the Gulf of Carperntaria, and it's going to be dragging in a lot of moisture into its inflow system here. So we've got that monsoon trough that's going to be extending across the Cape York Peninsula and into the northern reaches of the Coral Sea. And on the backside of that, we're expecting a lot of moisture to be rotating in from the southeast on the southern side of this monsoon trough. So as this tropical low begins to develop and mature a little bit more, we're expecting to see a lot of moisture be dragged in on the southern side of the system here, which is just going to come from the Coral Sea and get dragged in and have its clouds wrung dry over the far northern reaches of Queensland, which is why we're expecting so much heavy rainfall over the course of this weekend and into mid next week. So what we mean by this is that monsoon trough will be starting in the north and heading south, which means those heavy falls will pipe up through Saturday morning for the Daintree rainforest. We're expecting very heavy falls through there Saturday afternoon and into Saturday evening. The 6-hourly rainfall accumulations up to 150mm can be expected on Saturday night into early Sunday morning, before those rainfall accumulations really pipe up late Saturday night into early Sunday morning throughout far North Queensland's Cassowary coast, expecting some very heavy falls there. And we could be getting brief periods of rainfall accumulations up to about 60 or 70mm an hour, sustained for a couple of hours, and the accumulations to Sunday on 9 a.m. could be up to about 150 or 200mm along the Cassowary coast as well. Moderate heavy falls expected to extend across the North Queensland coastline as well, between Mackay and the Whitsundays up to Townsville, and then those heavy falls continuing up the Cassowary coast as far north as Cairns. Heavy rainfall will ease off actually for the far northern reaches of Queensland and the Cassowary coast and the Daintree rainforest through Sunday morning, and will be moderate to heavy between Townsville down towards Mackay, with the heaviest falls expected around the Bowen area through Sunday afternoon. This has been very consistent over the forecast models for the last couple of days as well, which is why I'm saying this in such great detail and with such great certainty, because even when we cross-reference this with other forecast models, it's saying a very similar thing, at least on the forecast right now. We are very similar in terms of timing, intensity of rainfall, and the timing of the rainfall itself. So we've got a great amount of certainty and a great amount of congruency between forecast models, and also just in the fact that this forecast is looking very robust now and very likely to happen, which is why I'm going into such great detail here. Falls tending moderate to heavy at times across the Whitsundays and the North Queensland coastline between Mackay, including Mackay, up through Bowen, Proserpine, and as far north as Townsville expected through Sunday afternoon. They'll tend very heavy at times around the Townsville area, around that Big Bend area, through Rollingstone, Ingham, and Cardwell throughout late Sunday night into early Monday morning, and the falls then beginning to ease off by the looks of things through Monday morning. And then from Monday morning, expecting a couple of days of just lighter rainfall. There'll still be some moderate falls around the Castlereagh coast, where we could be seeing 100mm a day through Monday and out towards Tuesday and Wednesday as well, but the rainfall for the most part being a lot lighter compared to what it's expected to be this weekend. And then Wednesday, we're expecting a resurgence of the rainfall here. Now, this will become, because that tropical low will then begin really quite quickly maturing in the Gulf of Carperntaria. Now, the other forecast models haven't really been on board with this over the last couple of days, but regardless, we are likely to see a maturing tropical low in the Gulf of Carperntaria, and if we do see that, some very significant rainfall accumulations will be expected just because of the inflow that this system will be dragging in. So through Wednesday, watching North Queensland and far North Queensland closely, moderate to heavy falls developing through the morning, tending heavy throughout the afternoon and evening. We'll be seeing some very significant rainfall accumulations through Wednesday night into early Thursday morning, and those rainfall accumulations remaining heavy up along the Castlereagh coast right through Thursday and into early Friday morning as well. Beyond that, the forecast is a little bit murky. It really does depend on the track and the motion of the tropical low in the Gulf of Carperntaria. Between the other forecast models, they're all more or less set in stone on having a tropical low either over Kakadu or over the northern parts of the Gulf of Carperntaria and the Timor Sea throughout the early parts of next week. It's just the axis certainly does have the strongest and I guess the worst case scenario in the forecast there. Now, the reason why I jumped straight to using the worst case scenario forecast is not because I'm expecting the absolute worst case scenario. It's a good chance that this tropical low doesn't develop, but in terms of rainfall accumulations, the axis is kind of the only one that, because of its overestimating nature and its bias towards thunderstorms, it's the only one that can really crank out some of those accurate numbers up in far North Queensland. And it was a forecast model that I used in the floods back in late January, early February, because all the other forecast models were saying much more reasonable rainfall accumulations, mind you, but the axis is the one that tends to go overboard. And in far North Queensland, the only thing that comes in there in terms of rainfall is overboard. So again, it's a good idea to be in the know of what the forecast models do expect. If we were just to take a look solely at the eastern wave and have a look at the rainfall accumulations over the next 14 days, you can see accumulations here on the forecast are only suggested to be up to about 250 to 350mm, and we all know up in far North Queensland that can fall in 12 hours, especially when we have a line of showers coming through. So we all know that forecast is wrong, even though it necessarily is right and certainly has some merit towards it. Same deal with the GFS, even though the GFS right now in this situation is actually calling for some respectable rainfall accumulations, but the axis is generally speaking the only one that cranks out some of those numbers that we like to see up in far North Queensland on the rainfall forecast in terms of making it a congruent rainfall forecast. So let's talk about rainfall accumulations right now. They will be widespread, quite heavy across the far northern reaches of Queensland, and using the next 14 days because that's what the GFS kind of has the biggest numbers on right now. And again, I'm not using this for the worst case scenario, I'm just using it because it has the most merit considering the location and the timing of this rainfall. So starting in the north and heading south, going through place by place, Cooktown and the areas around Cooktown, expecting rainfall accumulations up to that 400 or 500mm mark. There will be quite a lot of rainfall moving through in those locations. There are significant falls are possible on the mountains adjacent to the coastline. Between Woodgill, Cape Tribulation and down towards Port Douglas, rainfall accumulations up to about 500 to 600mm can be expected in those areas there, with higher accumulations out expected into the Daintree River catchment area and the Daintree rainforest as a whole. We could be seeing peak rainfall accumulations there over the next 14 days up to 800mm, again with those heaviest falls coming through on Saturday and then in towards Wednesday, Thursday and Friday of next week. Significant rainfall accumulations also expected down the Castlereagh coast as well, starting in Cairns, expecting falls of up to 500mm in there in the Cairns area as well, the majority of that coming through Sunday, and then from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, significant rainfall accumulations expected in those areas, and then very heavy falls expected between Cairns right down the Castlereagh coast as far south as Halifax and Lucinda, where falls could be well in excess of 1,000mm over the next 2 weeks. The majority of that rainfall, like I said, and you guessed it, coming in Saturday, Sunday and Monday, and then from Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and out towards Saturday the 22nd of March. And there actually looks like on the GFS forecast at least there is some heavy rainfall coming in on the backside of this system as well, so this will certainly be something to watch later on into the forecast period as well. We might see something develop in the Coral Sea in terms of tropical low activity. It'll certainly be a very conducive time for a tropical low to develop into the Coral Sea, so we will keep a very close eye on that. The GFS is calling for some significant falls also into the backside of this rainfall event there, which the other forecast models haven't necessarily picked up on right now. Anyways, back to the rainfall forecast. You can see peak accumulations there, at least on the forecast right now, up to about that 600mm mark, but like I said, accumulations will likely be much higher, up to that 1,000mm mark. Peak rainfall accumulations over the next 2 weeks shouldn't exceed 1,200mm around the Innisfail and the Tully area up to about 800 millimetres expected there. South Mission Beach likely to eclipse Tully in terms of rainfall accumulations. Into the Atherton Tablelands, Mareeba, Atherton and Ravenshoe, because this will be coastal based rainfall accumulations out there will be seldom above 50 millimetres on any given day, and as such rainfall accumulations throughout the duration of this event here shouldn't be anything in excess of about 300 or 400 millimetres. Atherton could pick up the most amount of rainfall from this rainfall event there, with up to about 500 millimetres again, but I wouldn't be expecting significant falls out into the Atherton Tablelands. Unfortunately, those are the locations that need the rainfall the most, and they won't be seeing it. Down towards Cardwell and Ingham, don't be fooled, there is going to be some really significant rainfall accumulations down there, and it's certainly time to begin keeping this in the back of your head. No need for preparations right now, but keep this in the back of your head so that you are mentally prepared for this rainfall event. Rainfall accumulations there shouldn't be anything over 1,000 millimetres over the next 14 days, but it's certainly going to be something to watch very closely. And in terms of numbers for Cardwell and Ingham, up to about 750 millimetres can be expected for both locations. Same deal with Halifax and Lucinda, rainfall accumulations up to about 750 millimetres can be expected. And whilst that in itself is not going to cause a flooding emergency like we saw a couple of weeks ago now, it will still cause some moderate to major riverine flooding in these locations, and the chance of some flash flooding as well. So make sure you are on your guard throughout the duration of this rainfall event, and certainly right now keep this in the back of your head, this rainfall event in the back of your head, and have a bit of a plan in place mentally speaking right now for when the forecast does actually begin to deteriorate and you do need to swing into action to prepare your home and property. Down towards Townsville, the rain dome will be in full swing here, and as such they're only expecting a piddly 300 to 400 millimetres of rainfall, but we could be seeing some really heavy falls in the Townsville area through not only tomorrow night but also through Friday night, Saturday and Sunday, and as such we could be seeing rainfall accumulations there over the next 5 days being up to about 200 millimetres or so, but then heavy falls expected to kick in the later part of the forecast period as well, and the GFS forecast is suggesting up to about 350 millimetres or so for the Townsville area, which I think is a plausible number. Air about 350 millimetres as well down towards Bowen, up to about 200 millimetres expected there. The Whitsundays are a little bit of a wild card right now. Widespread falls between 100 and 200 millimetres expected down towards Mackay, but heavier falls from southeasterly showers expected around the Proserpine area and into the Proserpine River catchment, where we could be seeing falls up to about 400 millimetres, and then the Whitsunday Islands themselves, nothing over about 150 millimetres can be expected over the next 14 days. Now, keep in mind all of the forecasting stuff for this rainfall event, we haven't actually seen the monsoon trough develop, and the tropical low that we're expecting to develop is really in its very early stages of formation now over the northern parts of the Northern Territory, so keep in mind that this needs to be taken with a very heavy pinch of salt right now. I've given you all of the details in regards to what we know about this system right now, but we haven't seen it actually develop right now, so it is kind of a stab in the dark, this forecast at this very point in time, but I imagine we'll know a lot more detail on this weather event as we get the forecast coming out tomorrow and into the next day as well, and it will just get more and more certain in the days to come. It is actually a very turbulent picture over northern parts of Australia, especially through the Northern Territory and parts of Western Australia as well. It is a very turbulent picture with about 30% of the state under cloud cover right now for Western Australia, and plenty of showers and thunderstorms and rainfall occurring across the interior parts of Western Australia as well. So even to the untrained eye, you can tell that something in the way of tropical activity is beginning to develop, and it certainly is going to happen over the Northern Territory and over Western Australia now. It's that time of the year when we are expecting tropical activity to develop, and I'll get to that in just a second, but we do have a bit of a hokey-pokey thunderstorm event expected to happen across the southwest corner of Western Australia, and we could actually be seeing some decent rainfall accumulations as a result of this thunderstorm event over the next couple of days. In fact, what we're expecting to happen is a cold front to be moving through from the west, and that's going to be dragging in plenty of moisture actually, which will start from tonight. We could be seeing some light showers around the southwest corner of Western Australia, extending as far north as Perth, and then a bit of a thunderstorm outbreak expected into the eastern parts of the wheat belt and into the southern parts of the goldfields down around the Salmon Gums and the Esperance area. The showers and thunderstorms expected to develop from early tomorrow morning and into early tomorrow afternoon across the Perth metro area, with plenty of showers and thunderstorms expected into the southwest corner, and a severe thunderstorm outbreak possible tomorrow night into interior parts of the wheat belt region. We could actually be seeing some really gnarly thunderstorms out there, and I'm tossing up right now if it's actually worth my time to go out there and chase, and I'll have a look at a proper forecast for it tomorrow, but it certainly looks like we could be seeing some good thunderstorms out there throughout tomorrow night. There's plenty of energy available for these thunderstorms as well, and it looks like all of the major forecast models are actually calling for something really significant in terms of thunderstorm stuff to develop. So if you are out in the wheat belt, especially in the central and the northern parts of the wheat belt, we could be seeing some very healthy thunderstorms out there into tomorrow afternoon and into tomorrow evening as this cold front does blow through, and certainly some interesting stuff, and the chance of some good thunderstorms around the Perth metro area as well, so keep yourself with that in mind. Rainfall accumulations shouldn't be anything in excess of about 15 millimetres for the majority of locations, but some higher accumulations up to about 40 or 50 millimetres are possible for some of the locations out into the wheat belt, especially with thunderstorms later on tomorrow night into early Friday morning. Then those showers and rainfall should begin to ease off there, but yeah, plenty of rainfall and showers from this hokey-pokey, very summery weather event that's going to unfold across the southwest corner of Western Australia. Any questions or comments on that, let me know in the comment section down down below. Anyways, tending things tropical now. We're going to start in chronological order where we've got that rainfall and tropical low expected to develop across the Northern Territory and into the Gulf of Carperntaria. Plenty of rainfall expected across the Northern Territory's top end coastline, especially between the West Australia side of things out towards Darwin and Melville Island. Rainfall accumulations over the next 14 days, especially over the next couple of days from showers and thunderstorms, will be up to about 500 millimeters in some of these locations here. So very healthy rainfall accumulations indeed. Across the top end of the Northern Territory, Katherine expecting about 200 millimeters of rainfall, Darwin expecting closer to 350 millimeters of rainfall, and a wide swathe of observations in around that 300 millimeter mark expected to occur over the next week or so. So some good rainfall accumulations expected there. All of the because of the tropical low developing or expected to develop in the Gulf of Carperntaria that's going to spin itself up later on this week and then really begin to mature into the early parts of next week. Now, this system is not expected to become a tropical cyclone. It would be very unlikely that it becomes a tropical cyclone, and it is going to take its merry time to develop. I mean, you're seeing me push this forward here throughout the next couple of weeks. We're not really expecting anything to develop, and it's going to be very slow moving, very slow developing over the Gulf of Carperntaria and into the top end of the Northern Territory. Through the later parts of next week and into early next weekend, around the 22nd and the 23rd of March, we're expecting this to then head out into the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf and north of the northwestern corner of Western Australia, and then head out onto WA waters by the 24th and the 25th. And we set this in yesterday's forecast update where we're expecting tropical cyclone activity to develop across the top end of Western Australia at around this time. So I'll get to that in just a moment. But again, plenty of rainfall expected across parts of the Northern Territory. The GFS forecast model also in the say with that as well there. Got plenty of rainfall on the forecast over the next 10 days at least in the Northern Territory. It will dry out once this tropical low gets dragged out of the Northern Territory area, especially if it heads over towards Western Australia. So I'm only expecting about the next 10 days to be especially wet for parts of the Northern Territory. So you make sure you enjoy the rainfall whilst it lasts as well. Make sure your drain pipes are plugged in and make sure everything gets a good drink and a good flush with the rainfall that's going to be coming through here. The rainfall should be at its heaviest through the 17th out to about the 22nd of March over the top end of the Northern Territory as this tropical low begins to develop, before the rainfall will then steadily ease off as this tropical low either heads out over West Australian waters or heads inland through the Northern Territory or even parts of Queensland, but the forecast of that looking pretty uncertain at this time. Anyways, let's talk tropical weather for Western Australia now. We have tropical cyclones expected to develop, and they're going to be pretty common as well, pretty frequent across the next 2 weeks by the looks of things. Nothing going for Western Australia by the looks of things, but take a look what the Eastern Web has here. It's a rapidly intensifying tropical cyclone skirting down the WA coastline and actually gets really powerful once it gets north of Karratha. Now, of course, following this track out, it is, of course, not going to make a landfall on the West Australian coastline, at least from this forecast here, but certainly one to be watching. We have rumbles of activity now offshore from WA, and we are expecting strong tropical cyclone activity there starting from the 22nd of March right out towards the 1st of April. It was always going to happen. We were expecting the tropical cyclone activity to return around this time, especially offshore from Western Australia. Now, I am expecting strong cyclones to develop as a result of this. Whether we get one, whether we get two, whether we get three is really independent in what forms right now. And it looks like in the backside of this system as well, we might have other systems developing in the Gulf of Carperntaria and over the Northern Territory as well. So once this system's been and gone, it looks like we're going to have a pretty wet start towards April as well. And tropical cyclone activity is expected through the first 2 weeks of April as well offshore from Western Australia. That's at least what the long-range forecast is suggesting right now. But yeah, certainly for Western Australia, I'm not going to go too much into detail about this tropical cyclone activity and what we're expecting because it is still very uncertain at this time. But starting from the 20th and heading out to probably the 10th of April through March and in towards April, expecting some significant tropical cyclone activity to develop offshore from Western Australia. And whilst it's still far too early to tell whether it will go for any land areas or be meaningful to the West Australian coastline, it is still certainly something worth keeping in the back of your head right now, and certainly something worth monitoring on the CyclonesOZ channel, and that we will be doing over the next couple of days. Anyways, that is all that I have time for today. I'm really glad that I actually hit record on this first video take because it is certainly the best video take that I'll probably take today. Anyways, thank you so much for watching the video to this point. The support lately has been much appreciated, and if you haven't already, then please consider subscribing. The support, like I said, has been much appreciated. But a special shout out to the channel sponsors. The names are on screen right now, and again, I could not run the show without them, and I'll catch you all at the next storm. Goodbye.